Back at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center as Ohio State gets ready to play Minnesota in the final warm-up for next week's huge game against Michigan. And we asked Ryan Day back in October and offensive line coach Justin Fry, you thinking about making any changes to the offensive line? Like early October, they were coming out of the bye week, didn't look that great against Maryland. And ever since, they said no, that they had the right guys, just needed to execute better. And ever since then, they have more or less executed better. You've seen improvement along those lines. The one exception has been maybe a lack of consistency at center. Well, I wouldn't say maybe. Like, that's been the spot that Carson Hinsman hasn't maybe come along the way those others have. So, last week, when Matt Jones slid over and played 10 snaps at center, which I believe are the first snaps he's ever played at center after years of speculation that he should be in the center mix for Ohio State, that kind of caught my eye. Stephen, when you heard Ryan Day today talk about it, did you think that it was this is a contingency plan, maybe especially for Michigan? And do you think it's one that they should be considering?
I think so, yes. Carson Hinsman is clearly the offensive line is coming along, but I think he's still a step behind where those other four are. And Ryan Day said part of that reason is he's the youngest, which is true. He is the youngest one in those situations, but we've been here before. Second-year center starting, and by the midway point of the season, it started to click for him with Luke Whipple. That's not necessarily happening with Carson Hinsman at that same level right now. I think that was important that they did it against Michigan State. I won't be shocked if they do it again against Minnesota because, like you just said, we've seen Matthew Jones take snaps at center in practices and warm-ups, but we've never actually seen him do it in a game. And you have to have a contingency plan just in case something goes wrong, just in case the first quarter things look a little iffy with Carson Hinsman, because Michigan does have some really good defensive tackles in there. That's actually part of the strength of their defense. And so what you can't do is go into that game trying to flip it around, and Matthew Jones has never played center, especially at center, because he has to have a level of just chemistry with the quarterback. So I won't be shocked if they do it again this week, because that's 2 games worth and 2.5 weeks worth of Matthew Jones being in that position. And so what it comes down to is Enoch Vamahi a better right guard by the time you get to the Michigan game than Carson Hinsman is a better center? And I think that's where your answer will lie, even if you have to make that decision after the first quarter.
That's a huge part of it, is like getting up 38-3 in a game and having it put away early, and it gives you some freedom to experiment. But last year in the Michigan game, people might remember Matt Jones couldn't play. He was hurt. It aggravated something against Maryland. Enoch Vamahi started in his place, but pretty early in that game, they put Josh Fryer in to play right guard to kind of stabilize things because that wasn't working out as well as they wanted. Andrew, just how serious do you think this is on the table for Ohio State to maybe have a quick hook if they need it against Michigan? Because I don't think that Matt Jones would have been playing center just on a whim in this last game. That's not to just make him ready to be a backup in case Carson Hinsman turns an ankle or something. It's about, do we need him to win that game?
Yeah, this struck me as break glass in case of emergency. You look at the offensive line and kind of where it's at. I mean, the offensive line has progressed from week 1 to now. I think that's undeniable. So it's a chemistry position. It's a cohesion position. You don't want to be messing with that in your 11th game of the year. So this to me, Ryan Day mentioned in his answer, the score played a factor in switching out, kind of what they did, the game situation, wanting to get some reps. I understand all that. So I think this team is going to lean with Hinsman. I mean, he said they're going to go with the starting 5, the same starting 5 against Minnesota. I think you go with the same starting 5 against Michigan. And this just gives you a contingency plan, because I mentioned before, this offensive line has been really healthy all year. And you don't want to be caught in a position like Stephen was saying. It's 30 degrees, maybe the weather's bad, you're in Ann Arbor, and Carson Hinsman either gets hurt or something happens, or maybe Matt Jones gets hurt and now Enoch Vamahi has to go play right guard and he hasn't played right guard all year. Like, you got to have some contingency plans here. So that's what this is to me. I think they're building up the depth and they're making sure that, hey, if something goes haywire for whatever reason, we're covered.
I think there's probably has to be a quick hook. Michigan, their defensive tackles, their defensive tackle rotation comprises 4 of the top 10 players in the Big Ten, the defensive interior guys in the Big Ten per PFF rating. Sorry, that was a weird way to spit that out. But I think they're very deep with good defensive tackles. And so the middle of this offensive line for Ohio State has to play well. And you've got your veterans there in Donovan Jackson and Matt Jones, and both those guys have been playing better as the season has gone along, especially Donovan Jackson has really stepped up, but it's going to be a key. They haven't won the battle up front in the last 2 years, which means they haven't won the game the last 2 years, and that's all that really matters. Carson Hinsman's the guy long term. I think it's going to be good that they get old and stay old at center, but they got to win this game, and I think it's got to be on the table. We'll talk about that more on Buckeye Talk. Get that wherever you can find podcasts, and get the text 614-350-3315. Sign up now. 2-week free trial will carry you through the Michigan game. from cleveland.com.